everybody. Not many people, maybe because it's on Windows. Anyway, my name is Noam Shochat. I'm from eToro. We don't like to call the role DevOps, but I'm the DevOps lead in eToro, part of the operation team. I'll start with the motivation why we decided to do this this presentation title. A few months ago, I went to some company and to some workshop about Ansible. And after 1 hour and a half, there was a session for opening a question, and I asked if someone try Ansible on Windows. And the reaction I received was everybody was laughing, and why the hell you're using Windows? So it's not my decision. I didn't start the company, but we work on Windows. So we were a team of few people, engineers, and we got the task. We want DevOps in the company. We want everything automated. We want CI/CD. This is the fact. We work mostly on .NET. There was trying to move a little bit from .NET, but we didn't do it eventually. So, of course, we did something, and let's see what we did. So first, a little bit about eToro. We are the world's largest social investment network. If nobody knows, I'll just open a free account and look for that. We founded in 2007. We raised around $60 million. We have more than 200 employees. Half of them are engineers. We have office in Israel, here in Ramat HaChayal, in London, Cyprus, Russia, and we are expanding also to China, if you heard about that. We have 5 million registered users spread on over 140 countries. And the complexity start now. 9 different apps. So we have native iOS, we have Android, we have the old open, we call it, that is Flash. We have .NET, of course. So this has become a little bit difficult when you want to set a CI/CD process. So our technology is, as we said, we have HTML, we have ASP.NET, we have Flash, we have iOS and Android clients. We have 2 geo-distributed data centers, one in London and the one in Amsterdam. We also work in Azure, of course, and I will be speaking about that as well. And we also have a solution for private cloud called Skytap. I'll mention that also next. We have more than 130 services, more than 500 servers. Most of them are Windows Servers 2012 R2, and we have some Ubuntu. Most of the Ubuntu servers are for Redis, as you see the next line, Redis, RabbitMQ, Azure Proxy, etc. And our base code mostly will be on Windows, and we use SQL Server 2014. So before we start, let's see what are the CI/CD ingredients that we are talking about. Probably most of you already know that. So first we have the developer, we have the code commit, the code push. The developer is doing something on his machine, on his server, and he commit the code, push it to the repository. We use Mercurial and GitHub. Second, we want to build it. If we speak about .NET, we want to build, compile. We want to do a unit test. If everything is okay, we continue to deploy it to the staging environment or QA environment or any other environment you wish to. And the next step, of course, will be production. We deploy it into production, especially when we speak about a web company. We're going to deploy to a website, to existing website, new website, whatever. And again, a new feature, a bug fix, you're going back to the commit and around. The challenges we have, we spoke about different operation systems. So we have both Ubuntu, both Microsoft, mostly, of course, as we say Microsoft. We have not only the Redis and Rabbit and etc. We have also a few apps that developed in Node.js and Ruby on Rails. So we need to solve this issue as well. We spread off 5 different environments. We say 1 in London, 1 in Amsterdam. We have a few environments actually in Azure. It depends how you look at that. And we have also in Israel and 1 private cloud called Skytap. So, and we want this process, the flow CI/CD, will go through all those environments. Some of the apps are eventually will go from Israel to Skytap and then to maybe London and to Azure as well. So the process needs to be identical for each environment, and each environment has its own difficulty. And at the end, different development language, mentioned .NET, Ruby on Rails, Node.js, PHP, Flash, and I think mentioned almost everything. So can we? Of course, I'm here, so yes, we can. We don't want to say don't do it. We want to say do it. So how we do it? First, we start with the main tool that we found that without that tool or tools alike, we won't be able to achieve. We use Jenkins. Jenkins is maybe the most popular CI tool in the world, maybe in Israel as well, as open source. Of course, you can pay for it as well. And we use Jenkins to manage everything. One of the main things they're doing in the past 1 or 2 years, they're pushing very hard the concept of CD inside Jenkins, not just CI, also continuous delivery. And we can say that we use Jenkins to practice this continuous delivery. So our pipeline will look like that. First, we have the checking to GitHub or Mercurial, and then we start, that happens from the developer machine, and then we start managing everything by Jenkins. First, we read the build, if we need to do a build. If we use PHP, almost nothing happened. If you use Node.js, so we do some, it's not a build, but with some works around Node.js, NPM, and so. We use MS-Build. We don't run the solution itself. We use MS-Build as a configuration file, an XML file that replicates not exactly, but what the Visual Studio does when you push the build command. You need to be careful in that area because it doesn't do exactly the same. But if you notice and you check it well, the MS-Build will do exactly what the Visual Studio does. So we use MS-Build and configuration build a file. We run it. Inside the MS-Build, there is the unit tests, the developer doing that job. You're building the XML file, the build proj, you put inside the end unit, and everything you want to do pre-packaging is code. Most of the time, those two tasks will run on the same job in Jenkins. In some occasion, it will be a different job. It depends. Then we'll deploy the QA or staging. We have on Skytap, Windows, Azure, and on-premise in Israel, of course. I explained a little bit about Skytap. There is anyone here that work with Skytap? Except of us? Another one, okay. Skytap is a nice solution that when you want to give an environment or dev or test environment or for customer, for every, not for only 2%, you want to give it to every developer or every team in your company. So you create an image or template of the environment, and then with a click, you create a new environment with everything. We have around 30 servers, Windows and Ubuntu, and when a developer wants a full eToro environment to test something, you just take the last template we created, push a button, and you have an environment that you can push his new code and test it, everything is working. It sounds very easy. It's not. We had to do a lot of tweaking to make it work, that the environment, the start, everything is working, and you have eToro. The problem with that, or not the problem, the challenge is that now a developer creating a new Skytap environment, he also wants that when he pushes the button on Jenkins or a trigger, it will be connected to his new environment in Skytap. And we don't know that this environment, it's new environment. So we had to solve this issue as well. So anyway, we deployed to that staging environment, and then we are doing integration tests, UI testing. Some of them we are still manual. We're trying to push it away and stop doing manual testing, and we have a team that develop automation UI testing. It's based on Selenium framework. I guess everybody familiar with that. And also we have a job in Jenkins that after the deployment succeeded, it will run the automation, and if everything is okay, we will go to the next step. We also run a nightly test of that UI, and you can use it even for monitoring if you want. The next and last step in this pipeline is the prod deployment. The production deployment will be either to Azure, different environment, different subscription, and or to our on-premise site. Is there anyone here that works with Azure? 1, 2. Okay, so you're not familiar with the regions or the subscriptions, or okay. So I'll try to explain about it a little bit more. Okay, so how we orchestrate Jenkins. Jenkins, we're not using Jenkins to get to each server in our environments. You can do it, but it's not built for that purpose, and it won't be easy. We use Jenkins as our build and test servers and our gate to the different environments. So install one agent, it's called slave, of Jenkins on one server in each environment. We have one in Amsterdam, London, one in production Azure. The subscription that is production for us. And we have for each environment in Skytap, because the environment in Skytap are separated from one each other. So we have an agent on that environment. And those agents are connected to one master. We are working with only one master. To Israel, and all the developers are logged into this master and work from there. Each developer, of course, see only the jobs and the view and the section he is allowed to. He won't see any other thing that is not part of his team. We control it using groups and roles and project roles with the Active Directory that is connected to the Jenkins as well. The two main plugins Jenkins offers that enable us to do this pipeline as a flow, we use the build flow plugin that is a little bit older, and there is the new one, the workflow plugin. So if you decided to start using Jenkins now and you want to do a flow, I suggest you go with the workflow plugin. It will be it's supposed to be easier to understand. It involve more coding work there. But it's supposed to enable you to do much more things and enable features and use plugins more easily than build flow. The build flow, the idea of build flow, that you are creating different jobs, but you can trigger them not from one job to another job. They call it downstream and upstream. The idea is you have one job that is from build flow job, it's called, and everything is as a code calling the jobs in the serious event that you want to. It can be done one by one. It can be done parallel. If you say, I want to run two jobs that run different tests together, I don't need to wait. Each of them run on a different node, so it's okay. You can ignore failure. I want to run this job that is run some test, but I don't want it to fail the whole flow. I want it to pass. Okay, say that, send a mail, do whatever, but you can continue to the next step in the flow. You can do retry, you can do a lot of things. The best is a Groovy code, so everything you write in Groovy will work there. So we are using the build flow to do the pipeline we saw earlier. Inside the Jenkins job, so we have a job and how we related it to Windows servers or any other shell, of course, that you see here is on Ubuntu that we have. If you're not familiar with Jenkins, so inside the Jenkins job, it's called a freestyle Jenkins job. You can execute any script that you want. You have a batch, a PowerShell, shell, or a Ruby. It all depends what you installed or what you have on that slave that you are assigned this job to work on. So in this window here, you can see the code. It's not that relevant, but we have two Windows batch command that actually execute a PowerShell script that deploy a new website or a new code to Azure. The job itself download the script from GitHub. So if we are doing any change of the code, it always received or get the new code, the new version, and then it will run it on the slave that this job is assigned to. And actually, you can do everything you want. We saw that our operation team now is start using Jenkins to operation tasks as well. He said, okay, I have a Jenkins slave in Amsterdam, so I have the gate is open, and now from that server, I open it to any other server he would like, and I can run a remote commands, a PowerShell commands to other servers, or do some query or whatever you want. And it doesn't, and you have a GUI to do that. It's saved as a code. It's much more easier than to remember. I have a script on that server and on that folder, and nobody remember it. And the documentation that someone wrote where the stuff are located is not updated. Here we have everything, and if it's not there, so it doesn't exist. Last thing about the Jenkins, we also reporting everything. So the pipeline is self-reporting to Graphite, Splunk, and Slack. We use, for Graphite and Slack, there is inside plugins those companies developed, the Slack developed, and Graphite some open source they put. And you just set where is the Slack account, where is the Graphite server with startd, and you have everything monitored and audited in your servers. Very easy, you don't need to do anything. And now we get to, okay, so how we deploy. I said we have only one agent on each environment, and we don't trying to deploy using the Jenkins lab itself, because we have 500 servers. We not intend to install 500 slaves in order to deploy our new code. So this section we are doing with Puppet, provisioning and deploy with Puppet. I'll show in the next slides how we run the Puppet, but let's see first what we are doing with Puppet. Does anyone here works with Puppet? 1, 2, all right. So, most of the time when you hear about Puppet or Chef or Ansible, as the first thing is it's not working on Windows, it's not working well on Windows. So first you have to know that Chef and Microsoft have an agreement now, and when you're creating in Azure a new VM, Windows or Azure VM, you have a checkbox that if you want a Chef agent on your machine. So of course Chef is working well with Windows machines, and also Puppet. As here you can see what we are doing with Puppet. So first we have an image, a basic image, that when we get that image, we don't know if you're going to install a web service on it or you're going to install a Windows service on it. We just have an image with the basic stuff we need on it. We decided together with the R&D, together with the operation. This is the basic. And now, depending on what we are want to install or to deploy it, we enable the relevant feature. So enable feature, I'm talking about, for example, IIS. If the service is for Win services, we won't enable IIS. If it's for, we will enable the IIS. We install third-party apps such as 7-Zip or any other. We're creating any basic folders that we need, like folder for backup with the right permissions and users, folder for where the services will be installed. So if it's a service from Win service, so we have a folder called C services, and then we have the services. If it's folder for a website, so when we enable the IIS feature, it will create the initpub www. So we don't need those folders. So it depends what you intend to install. So as you see, we install and configure Win services and configure a website as well. There is part of the code in Puppet. Most of the code we are using is modules inside Puppet. It's called resources and modules. And when you run Puppet, the Puppet master create a catalog, send it to the server, and run the Puppet commands. Some of what is missing, we write ourselves. So, for example, we are running the remote sign commands for PowerShell to be able to run. For installing the service in the background, we're running an SC commands, SC create, SC delete, create the users we want. And this is all done, but just running Puppet. And if we're creating a new server, the only thing we need to do is assign a role from Puppet to that server and run Puppet. And then we will, the server will get the packages it needs. It will create the folder, the apps, the feature, everything will be enabled as the resource or the catalog was written in Puppet. So now I have Puppet as part of the image and install on the server, but how do I send a command? Because I don't want to log inside the server and run the Puppet command. I want it to be done through the Jenkins. And how do I connect and orchestrate it? So we're using Mcollective. Mcollective is also from Puppet Labs company. And the idea is it's working with RabbitMQ or ActiveMQ. We have Mcollective client. The names in Mcollective are different. The client is what you know and server, and the server is what you know as agent or slaves or client. So we have the Mcollective client. It sends a message to RabbitMQ. I want to run any command. It could be run Puppet. It could be start some service or any plugin that is out there or any plugin you can write by yourself. And the servers are always asking the RabbitMQ or checking the RabbitMQ if there is a message that is for them. And you can do it by either run a command that I want Puppet to run on this server or those servers, or I want command to run on those servers that are aligned with effects that is assigned to those servers. When you create the server, you give it facts that say you are a server from production, you are a server that should be with the eToro website or any other services we have. And once I run the Mcollective command with facts, webs application, website, name, eToro, or whatever, you send the command to RabbitMQ. All the servers that are relevant to that message will run or will do what I asked them to do. And this is the way we can reach those servers. We also can told him run only few % of the servers that are relevant. You can control version. You say run only on servers that the version of some app or some version you save is that version, greater or smaller or different. And this is the way that you can run Puppet or any other thing only once on each server, not twice. And you can, in that way, you can save high availability in your environment. You don't deploy to all servers together. You choose only one server, you test on it, and then you say, okay, now do the rest, or do one by one. All of this is the capabilities of Mcollective. The trick of Mcollective, here again, it's a print screen from Jenkins. We have a shell script, and this script actually is sending an MCO is an Mcollective client to Azure production. So we send few parameters we need to filtering to find the right service we want to deploy to. And this will be on a subscription production in our Azure environment. The service name, we receive it from somewhere else. And we have any other, I don't even remember the order, what CCM and for CCM saying. But they say, should I do health check before I continue? Should I do some filtering and so on? So in that script, also in GitHub, and in been downloading every time we run this job, we send a command, and eventually it will be a MCO command that please run Puppet on that server or any other server. And we do it from designated job inside our flow in Jenkins. Another key tools is the key value store. There's something that you don't have to in this CI/CD. Actually, nothing. You don't have to have any of those things. You can do everything yourself. But this makes our life much more easier. And we're talking about configuration. So how we have a website installed in QA and website installed in production. And if we're talking about a regular IIS website, we have a web config. But we know that the URL to the Splunk is different. So how do I change? Do I save few web config as part of my my code base, my repository, and I say to the process that we deploy, when you deploy to production, please use this web config, and when you deploy to staging, please use that web config, or do I rename? I save production .config, QA.config, and one if the process is renaming according to the environment I'm in. So easier way to do it is the servers knows that they are on environment production. They know if they are on environment staging. And then we can save this in those key value tools store. And we said, when the server is running Puppet, Puppet knows I'm in production, so I'm going to hire data. And this is part of the Puppet lab, so it's fully integrated with Puppet. And it's go to the file that it's, you can have a few kind of it could be YAML, it could be JSON, or a few others. And I need to go to hire data to find the parameters that I'm missing. And because I'm in production or staging, I will go to production.yaml, or I will go to staging.yaml. And then you file the relevant parameter for me in that environment in that file. And then I don't need to save any 5 different web config or app config. I don't need to manually change it after deployment. I just need to save one template, a config template. We call it ERB file. That all parameters that are depending on the environment you are in are not hard-coded, they're just variable and parameters. And this is stored inside the hire data. Before I explain etcd, we found a problem with hire data, that we need to give access to the developers to that machine, that if they want to change a parameter, they have to log in, change this parameter, or add, or remove, or do some changes. And this is very crucial server. This server holds almost all the infrastructure of our CI/CD process. So it's very frightening to give any developer or even only the team leaders access to this server and change something. Because if you change something wrong, no one will be able to deploy anymore or run these Puppet modules. So we found another solution. You still can work with hire, and we still work with hire data. But we found another solution that we integrated with hire. It's called etcd. Etcd is also key value storage, and it's a cluster. They recommend that you will use 3 servers at least. On testing, we use only 1. On staging, we use 3. And in production, in Azure, as you see, we have 4 in different regions and in different cloud services. And inside the etcd, you have all the parameters that needed for the app. So we don't have web config anymore. Well, that's not quite true. You have web config, but the only parameters you should have in that web config is where is my etcd, and who am I, and what should I take from that etcd. And for that, we developed a DLL that speaks with this layer of etcds. There's an Azure proxy that is not here. They go to Azure proxy, and from the Azure proxy, they can go to each one of those 4 etcd servers. So it's fully redundant. And they take all the parameters they need from there. So the web config is very, very light. There's only a few parameters and not everything, 200 lines of what you need. On top of that, we build a UI admin. We call it CCM, Central Configuration Management. And this is a platform that makes it much more easier for the developers, for operation, to see what are their environments, the services, and the key and the values that are stored. Easy to change. If I now have some feature flag, and on some website, and it's set to false, and I want to change it to true, I don't need to log into the server and change it manually to true. I don't need to do a full deploy, and changing it is, if you're going back to hire, I don't need to manually change it in hire data and then do a full deploy in order to change this feature flag to true. I just need to go inside the Central Configuration Management, go to my section of this website, and go to the key called feature flag, whatever, and change it to true. And about a few seconds, or even 1 second after the website it saved a local file of all configuration. So if still we have a disaster and Azure gone black, the application will still continue to work with the local configuration file until we restore those components. And I promise I will talk a little bit about Azure, because you can speak about Microsoft today without mentioning Azure. We think that this is the main path Microsoft is going, and if you are a Microsoft shop, you should go there as well. So we have in Azure a few terms. It's called cloud services. Cloud services is a logic term that contain either VMs, Windows or Ubuntu's, or what we call web role or worker role. I'll speak about them in a bit. The second good thing is very supporting with the CI/CD and continuous delivery and uptime is the slots. Every cloud service is also sectioned to you can actually call it almost two environments, but it's not really that. One slot called staging and the other slot called production. So the way is to deploy first to staging environment, especially when you speak about web role and worker role, and you do some health check, basic health check of your site or your service on that staging slot. And when you decide that everything was okay, if you're going to portal, just click a button called swap, but we don't want to go to the portal. We want everything to be automatically and as part of our flow and our process. So we're doing a swap command using the PowerShell Azure SDK, and in the background, Azure just doing some redirect between those two slots. And we test it, and user don't affect at all. In our case, at least, we thought that this swap will cause a downtime, but it doesn't. And if another good feature of it that you can gain from it is a rollback. You immediately have a rollback, of course, only one version, that if something went wrong and you don't want to fix it now, or you cannot fix it now, or even if we are trying to push the don't roll back, but roll forward, you still can do a quick rollback that will take a few seconds, and you have the last version on site on production. Second thing in Azure is uploading package. Web role is what we call a website on IIS, but you don't need to log into the server. You don't need to go into the IIS. You just need to drop a package. And worker role is what is a Windows service, but it's not really a Windows service. It's more a process. You won't be able to go to the services and see your services installed. It's a process that runs, but you can count it as a Win service. And after you writing your code, that you run the MS bit, you have a package, and inside that package there also a definition file. And this definition file, you set what are the machines you want, how many machines you want, and this will all be created once you deploy it. So you don't need to worry about creating new machines from image or changing the size of the machine. Once you deploy, it will be changed. The disadvantages of it that sometimes it takes too many to be created, but it makes our life much more easier in terms of automation, because almost half of the process is automated by just dropping the package, and you have everything. Another nice feature is integration with GitHub. If you're going to the website, which is more SaaS solution, but it's not really a SaaS, and it's GitHub. Every server is being created in the background. You can connect to a Git account, and every time you push to that Git account, the Git hook will just pull that code and deploy it as a new website. And it will save all the versions you ever deployed, if I recall correctly. So you can roll back not just one, as in web role or worker role, you can roll back even 5, 6, or 7 version in the past. IaaS on Azure, if you still want to use IaaS on Azure, Windows or Ubuntu, well, not much to say. We're using the same. We have a Jenkins agent. We use Puppet Master in the environment, the production environment in Azure. We have Mcollective server and Puppet agent on all servers. It's connected to the Jenkins master in Israel, and it's for the developers is the same. They are just using a different flow. To summarize everything, so Jenkins is our main CI/CD tool. When you start, choose. It could be Jenkins, it could be Bamboo, it could be TeamCity. Choose whatever you want. You have a Puppet for provisioning and deployment. There's a new tools, Ansible, my example from the first slide. So it does work with Windows now, but it needs to be tested. We didn't test it yet. Mcollective as our orchestrator. Powershell Azure SDK for any Azure action we are doing. At the end, this is all just tools. DevOps is a lot more. When we started DevOps, everywhere we went, every company or every convention, they said DevOps, and the second sentence was open source and Unix and I don't know, Ubuntu, but never Windows. So this is not correct. There is the technology, and you can do everything with the technology, also with Windows, and also like ourselves with hybrid environment that we have Ubuntu and Windows as well. Our wish list is, of course, more than that. I want a standing desk that my manager won't buy me. But we want to automate everything, also every flow and job we want. We are creating a new job, a new flow. Everything we do in Jenkins, we want to automate it as well. And from that, we will receive more self-service. We want the developer to do everything themselves. We don't want them to come to the operations, to someone like me, that I'm the DevOps, and please create a job. I don't know how to create a job. Please create a view. Please create a flow. I don't know how to do it. We want to give as much as we can to the developer to do it themselves. We don't want any bottleneck, and I think this is part of the DevOps movement or CI/CD. Well, this is all. Any questions? Yeah. No, we tried to start and working on it, and we found it very difficult with the way our database is built and organized, and we didn't got to there yet. It's been 2 years already. Yeah, the database is mostly manually or any automated scripts from the database team, but fortunately it's not yet as a part of our CI/CD flow. So if there is any database changes or schema changes, it will have to do manually before or after the deployment, depend on. Yes? We are a web company, so we don't have any installation in terms of what we're giving to our customers. We are online. Other installation, if you have a third party that you need to install on a server, so we use Puppet, as I say. If we install 7-zip, we can install Splunk, agent Splunk. That we will do with Puppet. Containers we are not using. Yesterday there was a session about Docker, and they said it's not production yet. But we are not using, maybe in the future. Yes? Mm-hmm. In our cases, our environment is a little bit difficult because how it was developed. So the best thing to do is have, for developers, something that call everything in one box. Like they will be able to install the whole eToro environment on their machines. It will be light, easy. The way we are working, it's not easy. We are unable to do so. Therefore, we use Skytap the way we are using. Yes, it's heavy. It's more than 30 or 40 servers. But this is something we have from the past, and it'll be difficult to change now.
Don't you use programs in your solution somewhere?
No.
But how do you spin up the machines? You have this template, and you run the machine, VM, to collapse up.
It's a solution inside Skytap if you want. We're out of time, but if you want to ask me, so.
It's an open source solution.
Yeah, we know, but we can't build on eToro on a Vagrant. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.